So welcome to the museum. My name's Mark, and I'm the owner of the Laurel and Hardy Museum. Now, I know I can see the question on all your lips: how does such a young, handsome, trendy man about town such as me get involved in these silly old films? Well, I got involved in Laurel and Hardy through my granddad. Grandad was a huge Laurel and Hardy fan. He was born in Barrow-in-Furness, just down the road. He moved into Ulverston as a young man and he opened a shop. He sold the first electrical items in the town. They called them Billy Twin Tubs because of the washing machines that he used to sell. And in the back of the shop, he began collecting Laurel and Hardy bits and bobs. He'd seen his first Laurel and Hardy film at 9 years old and he fell in love. And he'd always had an interest, but as when he got a little bit older, he had a bit of money to spend and he spent it on Laurel and Hardy memorabilia. He had a couple of small rooms in the back of the shop and that's where he kept his collection. In the 70s, the house that Stan was born in was being renovated for the first time that anyone could remember, and all the stuff was going to be thrown out, and so Grandad went in and he got everything he could get his hands on. The doors, the fireplaces, there's lots of bits and bobs that look a little bit out of place in the museum. They all came from the house that Stan was born in. We can't guarantee it was all there when Stan was there, but something like the door, you would imagine, something like the fireplace was certainly likely to have been. Now, Grandad never intended to show his exhibition to the public. It was just his hobby, it was just his favourite thing to do. However, he was in the birthplace of Stan Laurel. Stan was born in Ulverston, as you may know. And so people might read a book and arrive in the town, and if anyone asks in the pubs and the shops, does anyone know anything about Stan? Everyone would say, oh, go and see Bill. I think Bill knows all about it. And so one way or another, anyone with an interest in Laurel and Hardy would end up at my granddad's store. And he would spend hours, given half the opportunity, talking about Laurel and Hardy. In the early 80s, he decided that it was getting popular enough that he would open it to the public, and he made it his mission to prove to the world that Stan Laurel was born in Ulverston. Because at the time of his birth, Stan's parents were living in the northeast, and so people just assumed he was born over there. However, we knew in Ulverston that he was born here, and so Grandad decided to prove it. So that's a little bit about us. I was 7 when the museum was opened, and so as you can imagine, my entire life has been in this funny little Laurel and Hardy bubble. I never stood a chance. When I was little, I hung around watching films in the museum, helped out as a teenager, and then just fell into it. We moved from Grandad's old museum at the end of 2008. When we got the chance to come into the old cinema, I thought, if we're going to have it anywhere, if we're ever going to move, this is the perfect place to move it. It's a 1930s cinema, and obviously it was just the right era for Laurel and Hardy. So that's a little bit about us. Stan Laurel was born on the 16th of June 1890 in Foundry Cottages, Ulverston. Now his birth name was actually Arthur Stanley Jefferson. However, his dad was already Arthur, so they always called him Stan, but Stan Jefferson was his name. He changed his name to Laurel a little bit later on in the story, but we'll get to that. Foundry Cottages is just across the road. The street was renamed to Argyle Street, and it now stands as 3 Argyle Street. And as I say, it was the home of his grandparents. Stan's mum and dad were living in the northeast. Stan's father was a theatre manager, so they were very busy and late nights and long hours, and so Stan's mum had come home to her parents' house to have the kids, and so Stan was born in his grandparents' house. And then they left him with Grandma and Grandad till he's about 5 years old. Now, my parents helped me out with my little boy quite a lot, but I can't imagine them raising him for the first 5 years. It seems incredible to me, but I'm told it's not entirely unusual. At school age, Stan went back across the country to live with mum and dad and was immersed in the world of the theatre. From a very early age, Stan wanted to be a comedian. He just loved the reaction that the comedians got from the audience and decided it was the only thing he ever wanted to be. His father, as a theatre manager, however, wasn't too keen on this idea. He understood the nature of the business, and he knew that it's not an easy way to make money. You know, you have to be very lucky and very talented to make any money as a performer. And so Stan's father was trying to push him into the managerial side of the business. Stan pestered and pestered and pestered, and at the age of about 9, his father built him a theatre in the attic at home. Stan had a very comfortable upbringing, regular trips across the country on the train, a nice big house, and they had a big attic. And Stan's father built him a small theatre in the attic, and it was a real theatre with working curtains, scenery, a small stage, some seating for the audience, and oil-filled footlights on the front of the stage. And at the age of 9, Stan formed the Arthur Jefferson Amateur Dramatic Society. A very grand name for a 9-year-old, but he began writing plays directing plays, acting in plays, and producing them. And all was going well. It was quite a successful little operation until one day Stan wrote a fight scene into one of these early performances. And him and his friend got carried away. They rolled off the edge of the small stage, knocked over the oil-filled footlights, and of course nearly burnt the house down. Dad wasn't too pleased and had it all done away with, and all his pocket money too. So that was the end of Stan's early acting career. The family moved up to Glasgow, and when Stan was 16, after he'd left school, he made his first performance on stage in a place called the Britannia Panopticon. Stan's father was managing a very well-appointed theatre in Glasgow, a place called the Metropole, but Stan went across town to a rival theatre to his father's. Now, Dad didn't want him to be a comedian, remember, so Dad didn't know about it. Stan concocted a plan which involved him stealing his dad's best frock coat and trousers, his best top hat, cutting them up to make them look raggedy and tramp-like, you know, sort of like the Chaplin character. That was very popular even in those days. And he went across town to the Britannia Panopticon, which was a rum old spot. There was fights and drunkenness, completely usual in the Panopticon, and Stan stood on the stage and made his first performance, telling gags that he'd probably stolen from the performers in his dad's theatres over the years. Now, depending on who you believe at this point, depending which books you read, this first show either was fantastic or it was terrible. Now, I tend to believe terrible because of the nature of the audiences. The Glasgow audience are not renowned for being a generous group. They would, in this particular theatre, they would take scraps of metal and rivets from the shipyard floor to throw at the acts, and so I don't think they were particularly generous to a young, nervous Stan. Anyway, he got through it, and he takes his final bow, looks across at the audience for the first real time, and catches his father's eyes. Oh dear, he's in trouble. He's not supposed to be there. He's ruined his dad's best clothes. So the story goes that he throws the hat off his head into the audience, runs off the stage, trips over the baggy trousers, which are too big for him, falls flat on his face, and the crowd goes wild. He gets the biggest laugh of the night, which Stan thought was a good thing. He was after a laugh. He didn't care that they were probably laughing at him and not with him, but he thought it had been a success. However, he still had Dad to face. His father had got back to the Metropole Theatre before him, and Stan was summoned into the office. Stan opens the door with trepidation, and his dad says, "Well, congratulations. Sit down, have a whiskey and soda." And Stan burst out crying. It seems like his father really respected the sheer guts and determination it showed for him to get off his backside and to try it for himself. And so Stan's connections probably got him a job in Levy and Cardwell's Juvenile Pantomime Company, where he worked from 16 to 19. At 19, Stan was headhunted by a gentleman called Carno. What do we know about Carno? Fred Carno, Carno's circus, Carno's army. It was a phrase that maybe your parents would have used to mean chaos. If it was chaotic, it was like Carno's circus. Now, Fred Carno didn't run a circus or an army, of course. They were travelling comedians, and the reason that the name Carno came to mean chaos was the types of plays that Carno put on. They were these chaotic, slapstick, kind of Keystone Cops-like plays put on the stage. And Stan joined the Fred Carno troupe as the understudy to another young Englishman of the time. I've got a nod over there. I sometimes get a nod. He was the understudy to Charlie Chaplin, that's right, yeah. Stan Laurel and Charlie Chaplin worked together. It's an incredible thing that these two guys from such different backgrounds ended up together, and it was through Carno that both Stan Laurel and Charlie Chaplin went to America. First of all, they went over in 1910 on a converted cattle boat. Not a very pleasant way to travel. Carno had said, "We've written a play, you rehearse it in the 4 weeks it takes to sail to America, and when you get there you should be perfect and everything will be fine." However, a converted cattle boat, it doesn't have the stabilisation of a nice passenger liner. It was a small little thing and it bobbed up and down for 4 weeks, and they were sick as a dog the whole time. So the first show was a bit of a failure, and they all came back to the UK. Stan actually left Carno. He fell out with them over money and went round Europe, thought he could do better on his own, and apparently was on the brink of starvation when he borrowed some money off his brother to get back in touch with the Carno troupe, and he rejoined them for the second tour of America. This was in 1912, and this time they did go on a passenger liner. October of 1912 on a boat called the Oceanic, which wasn't the sister ship, but it was on the White Star Line, and it was the cousin ship to the Titanic. Only 6 months after the Titanic had gone down. And I wonder, did they manage to get on the passenger liner the second time because the ticket prices on the White Star Line had gone down? Anyway, they rehearsed on the way over. The second show was a huge success. The play was called A Night in an English Music Hall. And the idea of the play is, we, the audience, were watching Charlie Chaplin, who was watching a play. So it's a play within a play. Chaplin called the character they referred to as the inebriate. He was drunk. Now Chaplin didn't enjoy the show he was watching, and so he starts by heckling them. And then he ends up on stage, and a big punch-up ensues, and apparently it was hilarious. Rave reviews right across the board. Charles Chaplin is going to be a star. And it's true, that's how it turned out. By the end of 1914, Chaplin is absolutely on his way. He's making movies. It takes our Stan a little bit longer to get going than that. Now when Chaplin left, the Carno troupe in America disbanded, and most of the guys came back to the UK, but Stan and a few others stayed in the States to try their luck on the vaudeville circuit. And Stan was in a double act for a while, he was in a trio for a while. For a short time, he made his living as a Charlie Chaplin imitator. Stan Laurel was the first ever Charlie Chaplin imitator. And of course, there was no one better place to do it. He understudied the guy. Around about this time, Stan decides he doesn't like the name Stan Jefferson. He thinks it's holding him back for two reasons. First of all, the name Stan Jefferson is very long, and to fit the long name on, you have to use smaller letters on the billboard, so you look less important than everyone else, and that's no good. He doesn't like it. But the second reason is there are 13 letters in Stan Jefferson, and performers are often superstitious. He thought it was bad luck. Now, he never really hits on a new name until he meets up with a lady called May Charlotte Dahlberg. She's an Australian girl, and she's a performer, and they become boyfriend and girlfriend. They live together out of wedlock in 1917-18. Shocking. Theatrical types, you see, they're a different breed. But they're also a double act on stage. Stan and May are down on the luck around about this time, and May's had to sell some jewellery to keep a roof over their head, to keep them fed. And they're in a theatre one day. May picks up a book off the side. It's a history book. And she flicks to a page where there's a section on the Roman Empire. And she sees there a Roman general in his laurel wreath. And she says to Stan, "Stan, look to your laurels." And Stan says, "Laurel? Stan Laurel, I like it." And they begin performing as Stan and May Laurel. The first mention of the two as Stan and May Laurel is about 1917. And it does feel like Stan's fortunes begin to slowly change around this time. Stan gets a job with a guy called Joe Rock, who wants him to make a series of movies. He wants to make Stan a star. Now this is great news. This is all Stan had ever wanted. He's had a long apprenticeship. He'd been through times of serious hardship. But this guy Joe Rock wants to make him a star. He gives him a contract. There is a slight snag. Joe cannot stand the sight of May. Stan and May had a tempestuous relationship at the best of times. They fought like cats and dogs, but they loved each other, and they had an agreement whereby if Stan got a role in anything, May also got a role in it too. However, she wasn't very good. And so she was really, at this time, by a lot of people, thought to be holding Stan's career back. So Joe came up with a plan. He essentially paid her off. He offered her $1,000 made up of some money, the jewellery that she'd been forced to sell, and a one-way ticket home to Australia. She had to agree never to see Stan Laurel again. And true love didn't win this one. She took the money and she went. This is how little they trusted May. They didn't give her the money, the jewellery and the tickets. She just got the ticket. And the money and the jewellery was given to the purser of the boat with strict instructions not to let her have it until they were a day's voyage away from America, so she couldn't swim back. With May off the scene, Stan then makes this series of movies for Joe Rock. They go fantastically well. They make them in about half the time they'd intended to, which is great news for Joe because he saves money on all the production. It's not too good for Stan though, because he's contracted for a length of time and not an amount of films. So with the films made, there's no extra work, but Joe won't release him from the contract. He won't allow him to go and act for someone else. It leaves Stan a little bit stuck until he gets a job directing movies for a man called Hal Roach. The Hal Roach Studios is where Laurel and Hardy made all of their best work. And Stan Laurel is a director there and actually quite enjoys it behind the camera. He hadn't had the success he'd been looking for, but quite enjoyed thinking up ideas for other people and directing other people's movies. And so he decides he'll never act again. And all is going well until 1927. Stan Laurel at the Hal Roach Studios directs a film starring Oliver Hardy. During the making of the film, Ollie burns himself at home cooking quite severely and can't finish the film off as he'd intended it. And so reluctantly and just to get the job done, Stan comes back in front of the camera and they kind of play the role between them. And Laurel and Hardy make a movie together, completely by chance, with no grand plan at all. The guys at the studio, and it's no more complicated than this, like the idea of the big guy and the little guy. It's just fun. So they try them again in another film, and then another, and another, and another, and they get more and more successful until eventually they're teamed up full time, and Laurel and Hardy form a partnership. They go on to make 106 films together. They win 1 Oscar for The Music Box, which is of course the very famous film where they try and deliver the piano up the long flight of stairs. We're going to watch a film in a little minute, but before we do, does anyone have any questions? Did I get anything wrong? No questions? Okay, well then, with your permission, I would like to show you Laurel and Hardy's The Music Box.